Watch this before you set your 2026 goal, because I'm not here to talk about vision boards or 5-year plan spreadsheet. I'm here to share the human way to achieve your goals without you burning out by the end of the year. Hello everyone, my name is Minnie. I am a licensed and registered therapist based in Malaysia. I can't believe it's the end of the year already. I believe every video starts somewhat like this. Last year I did a 2025 goal setting. I pretty much still stand by the method that I use, but this time around I want to add a little bit more tips and tricks, or even just my overall reflection about how that method went. For years I was the queen of rigid goal lists. I would start off the year by creating a list of goals that I want to achieve in different aspects of my life. It can somehow look like this. And I would be specific because of the whole SMART goal approach. I was pretty specific with how much money I want to earn, how would the relationship look like, how much of my career growth would look like, getting a promotion or being able to achieve XYZ project. Yet, every time when it's the end of the year, I would be left feeling burnout, frustrated, and most importantly, I would pretty much always come to this point where I hate myself. My relationship with myself was not the best. But 2 years ago, when I started using this method, I realized that I end the year with so much more gratitude towards myself. My relationship with myself has changed so much, in a sense where I don't beat myself up for not achieving those goals, but more so because the goals that I set up has set me up for success. I do think it's a chicken and egg situation where when you create something or set a goal that is helping you to succeed, you're more likely to succeed. Okay, so let's talk about the core problem first. The core problem is I see a lot of people plan their life or plan their year like a robot. It's somewhat like you separate your life into different files in the cabinet, like a column for money, a column for health, a column for relationship. But the truth is, all of this is under one cabinet. When you don't take into consideration that you are a whole and one aspect would affect the other, that's when it always feels as though that you need to make a choice between the two. One thing we need to start recognizing is that your goals, your life, are not separate columns. They are one whole ecosystem. And when we set rigid outcome-based goal, we would most likely end up feeling frustrated because most of the time we discount the reality that life happens. Life will happen. Like this year, I honestly did not think that I would quit my full-time job so quickly. I thought like now, which is like November, is when I will quit my job. But I ended up doing it way earlier. I did not have running another half marathon in my goal setting this year. But I ended up doing it with my uncle as well. So which is like such a good bonus point. And because of the method that we will talk about later, I no longer tie my worth with the outcome, but more so of the clarity that I have when I make all these decisions. And all this somehow still align with the outcome or the goal that I was setting for myself earlier this year. Having that rigid vision or rigid outcome that you want to achieve by the end of the year, it somehow allow more things to go out of control. So for example, if I say that I want to get promoted by Q3, it somehow create more opportunity for things to go out of control. Because if it didn't happen at that specific timeline, or it didn't happen specifically how you want it to look like, it can be very frustrating because that's the goal you set for yourself. I do think that our relationship with uncertainty is a practice and is a ongoing journey, which is why I encourage people to allow more space for uncertainty to happen and to build that resilience with uncertainty. Now let's talk about what should we do. The first thing that you want to do is to work backwards. There is this method called the miracle questioning under solution focused therapy modality. I want you to imagine it's December 31st, 2026. If everything miraculously worked for you, what would your day-to-day life look like? You can go very, very specific. I know a while ago I said not to be specific, but just for this segment, be very specific with what you want your day to look like. What time do you wake up? Who do you wake up to? What does your room look like? What does your breakfast look like? Where do you go? How do you go to your workplace maybe, or school? What do you do there? Who are you working with? Who are the people around you? How do you feel? And just all that details, just put that in from morning until the time you go to bed. The next thing that you would want to do is looking at that day-to-day schedule. What is that one word that could embody the feeling of going through the day? My word for 2025 was honesty. And this word would ultimately be like a North Star for you. A lot of times we don't actually need a very hyper-specific goal, but we do need an anchor to guide us when making decisions. How many of you started a year with all these goals, specific goal, hyper-specific goal, just to end the year with none of it being achieved, or you never really refer back? Because it's so difficult to refer back when you have so many different specific goals. But when you have a simplistic way to ground yourself, to anchor yourself, that makes it easier for you to stay in the loop of how you are making decisions based on your goal. And having a word for the year is such an important and simple way that you can carry it in your pocket. For example, every time I make a decision or I'm at a crossroad, I ask myself, if I'm honest with myself, what do I think about these options? And if I'm honest about all these options, which one am I leaning towards? And having this word of the year create more wiggle room for potentially what would happen, which means that when I ask myself these questions, I give wiggle room that I might quit my job way earlier than I thought I would. And it gives me more wiggle room to allow more resources to come in to help me make more honest decisions. Now that we have our word of the year, there's this one technique that I've seen on maybe Pinterest, going to link it down, but I love that question because I started implementing it for my 2026 goal setting, and I realized that it's such a powerful question. The question goes like this: if I were to achieve certain goal, I fear that. There is this saying that I don't really agree with, which is, if you want it enough, you would do it. It's only half of the truth, because sometimes we don't reach out or we don't go for the things we want to, is that there is this underlying fear or underlying belief that does not need to be true, but it feels very true. The fear is somewhat like a handbrake that keeps you moving forward, especially when you need to be brave and move forward with it. Learning about your fear can be very interesting, because even as a therapist myself, I find that my fear makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. I started laughing at myself when I wrote down my fears, and I'm like, oh, this does not make sense. Why do you fear all those things? Well, that's a story for another time. Let me give you an example. If I show up on YouTube or social media successfully, I fear that people might point out that I'm wrong. People might point out that I am an imposter. People might point out that I don't know enough. And yes, that's still my biggest fear. If you ask me, does this fear make sense? I don't know, like I am still debating about it. And this is when the next step is so important. You want to then ask yourself, I would rather face this fear because I would rather face the fear of not knowing enough, because if my content could help make mental health conversations more accessible, that would do more good than harm. I would rather face this fear because someone might be in the same position as I am, and this could help them feel less alone. And honestly, when I look at my fear, I look at it and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like I realize that there will never be such thing as knowing enough. I somehow set a ceiling that does not exist because there will always be more things to learn. The world is changing so fast. There will always be new inputs and new information that's available for us to learn, and that's a good thing. So not knowing enough is not valid. When you start to see the opposite of fear, you start to see your greater purpose to that goal or to that outcome that you've always been wanting. And I think that's a very powerful approach to your setting your goal, because you are also tying some emotions to this outcome that you'd like to achieve. In conclusion, stop planning like a robot in 2026. You are not a robot. You're human. You're human first. So start planning like a messy, honest, flexible human being. I wish you the very best for 2026. And if this approach, this video resonate with you, feel free to hit the subscribe button or share this with someone who might need it. And I am excited to hear about your word of the year. I'm really excited to kind of have more people set goals like human. We are human. All right, that's it. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.